You're listening to That Home Loan Hub. I'm Zibuni Solimova, here to make home loans and property investing simple, smart and stress-free. Let's get you closer to your property dreams. Hello and welcome back to That Home Loan Hub. I'm joined by Elizabeth. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello. Nice to be back.
Nice to be back. Nice to have you back. So today, what are we going to talk about?
Well, we were talking another time about retirement in New Zealand compared with overseas. So did we want to go a bit deeper into that?
Yeah, okay. That's a cool one. All right. I had a little assistant to look at some information for us. Look, guys, if any of this is wrong, please reach out and let us know. Any feedback is feedback. But let's quickly look into Australia versus New Zealand and what you get.
Because people do have the sense that in Australia you're paying so much more throughout or getting so much more from your employer as well. The contribution rates for super is a lot higher. And I think if they tried to introduce 11% contribution rate in New Zealand, people would be freaking out going from our current 3%. But their whole system is a little bit different, right?
Yeah, it looks like the whole system is very, very complex. So for instance, let's start right at the beginning. The pension in New Zealand, the moment you reach 65, most of the people are eligible, unless they're like my mom who hasn't really lived here and she comes and goes and they're like, you got to stay in the country for at least 10 years to qualify for the pension. Fair enough. But most of the New Zealanders that have worked hard all their life in New Zealand, normally they would qualify for New Zealand pension. So 65, they get about $600 per week for a single person.
Yeah. And it's adjusted whether you're single or a couple, right?
Yeah. And it's not income tested. It's not asset tested. So
I think it might be our only universal benefit, essentially. It's the only thing that we don't means test.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right, because everything else gets income tested.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one doesn't. So if you are a property magnate and you've got like 20 properties and you've got all this rent coming in and you've got all this managed funds and a KiwiSaver and everything else, you will still get that pension.
Yep.
So some people might think, oh, that's not fair. But then some people might think, well, I worked hard. I worked hard to get it. So either way, they get it. But in Australia, on the contrary, it's income tested and asset tested. So they see what you've got coming, what assets you have, etc., etc. So you may not qualify for the government super.
And I think that would be huge if they did that here, because people might not have a high income, but we tend to be quite like asset rich in the fact that we have such a leaning towards property. And so that would really shift the balance of how we support people in retirement if we started taking into account the assets, which a lot of people, I would say, they're intending for that to go to their children and their grandchildren. They're not expecting that to count against them. So it'd be really fascinating to know how that's different in Australia in terms of that intergenerational planning.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, because immediately my mind goes to, wow, if you were a person, you had all these properties that you wanted to pass them on, would you be selling them? Then would you be getting rid of your assets and income?
Yeah, potentially at an earlier age before you hit 65 and start getting means tested.
Yeah, exactly. How mean you are. How your income.
How wealthy you are.
I love it. Okay, and then the other one is they're looking at, what do we look at? So we looked at the differences in contributions. So for instance, in New Zealand, we have 3% contribution going up to 4%. In Australia, it's 11 going to 12.
Yeah.
So next year, it's going to be 12%.
If you think of how much Aussies are going to have when they hit 65, it's a lot more than we generally have.
It's more than double.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, easily, 3% versus 11. Yeah, they're definitely going to have 3 to 4 times more money in their KiwiSavers managed funds, retirement funds, by the time they retire versus our average New Zealanders.
Which I think is something that we don't take into account. Like we've always had the super. The super's been universal, so there's a sense that we will be looked after in retirement, which is a really good foundation. And then 16 years ago, we finally brought in KiwiSaver. We were quite late to the game with having a superannuation scheme. Like Australia has been going for longer with theirs, which is why it's a more mature system, and the UK and everywhere else. And so now people are like, well, I'm in KiwiSaver, I'm going to get the pension, so I'll be fine. But actually a lot of people get to that age and they're not fine because if you've just been putting in 3% KiwiSaver and potentially, especially for women, if you've had gaps in your career along the way.
Yeah, and remember we talked about that paper, that the research that came out, right? The life cycle of a woman's journey, because she would be the one taking off time usually to look after kids.
Taking time out, going part-time, lower paid careers. So it really impacts anything where it's just a percentage of your income, which KiwiSaver is. Yeah.
Do you want to hear a fun fact? So in Australia, the superannuation started in 1992. 1992 versus New Zealand, it kicked off in 2007.
Yeah.
So that's 15 years later. So we're like 15 years behind, basically.
We are. To be honest, I actually thought theirs was even older than that. But
no, it says, well, it was voluntary before that. So people could be part of the scheme, but it was voluntary.
Gotcha.
And then from 1992, they made it compulsory.
Right. More like what we have with KiwiSaver, where you have to opt out rather than opt in.
Correct. And other fun fact is their one started around 3% when they first started. So 23 years ago, they were also doing 3% contributions.
So in 15 more years, we could be at 11%.
Yay!
Prepare for that.
But it's really interesting because they actually had a big jump, because by 2002, so 10 years later, they were already at 9%. So we're quite behind.
They went quite quickly.
Yeah, so we're quite behind. And now by 2021, they were at 10%. By 2023, they were at 11%. And now they're sitting at 11.5%. And apparently next year, they want to go to 12%.
I think Kiwis have a really interesting approach when it comes to their money, though, in that we're very protective of anything we've earned. And so anything, whether that's tax where it's going for kind of like communal good, or something like KiwiSaver for where it's going for our own futures, anytime there's a suggestion that we take more out of our actual pay packet that comes home with us, we have a really strong reaction. We really push back against that and say, no, I can't afford my lifestyle if you take away another couple of %.
Yeah, because we started at 1. They started at 3, we started at 1. So just saying that I think the expectations started at completely different levels.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
And now, like 10 years later, we're just getting to 3 to 4%. 16 years later. So I think your calculations are slightly off. I don't think it will be.
In 15 years, it's going to be like 30.
Yeah. I think we're slowly getting there. But they're just, case in point, right? Like how they're tracking versus how we're tracking. And yes, as we talked about before, is the grass really greener on the other side? And should people really be investing now? And why should they be investing now? So open question to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's great that people have their KiwiSaver and it's going to go to 4% and that's going to help. And we want to think that the pension is going to stick around for another 30, 50, however many years. But that's not going to be sufficient. And so a lot of my conversations with people are either people who know that it's not enough and they've been maybe putting 10% into their KiwiSaver voluntarily, but then that is locked away all the way till 65 if they've already bought their first home, which a lot of them have. Or they just putting in the minimum to KiwiSaver, but they kind of have the sense that they've got a bit of extra money every pay and they should be doing something with it, but they don't know where to start. And that's where the conversation around managed funds comes in, because KiwiSaver is just a managed fund with extra government rules. And so these people who feel like they don't know how to invest, they don't know where to start, they're already doing it. They just need someone to guide them into how else they can be accessing that same investment tool. And one of the great things about it is that not everybody wants to work right up until 65 and then stop. Sometimes people want to stop earlier, reduce hours, be part-time, have a career shift, take sabbaticals, all of these things. And KiwiSaver, because it has this focus on we need to support people in retirement, as in after age 65, it doesn't allow you that flexibility. Whereas if you've been funneling your money into an equal investment fund in the sense that it can be the same amount of risk, it can be the same amount of diversification, it's the same level of tax efficiency, but it has more flexibility. It can be tailored to what your goals are for your career and lifestyle. Then gives you so much more control over building that wealth for the future. And somewhat protects it from potential changes in KiwiSaver also, because we've seen with the changes this year that the government can mix up the rules if they want to. So even though that KiwiSaver money that you've already got is definitely yours, the way it's going to be kind of managed can be changed by different governments' opinions on how it should go. Whereas the managed funds tend to be less of a political football than property or KiwiSaver.
And you're more in control of that, right? Like,
Exactly, yeah. It just gives you that control and flexibility. So people think that maybe it's going to be taxed highly. It's not. The ones I use are still PI tax, which is the same as your KiwiSaver. So 28% is that top tax rate. They are very, we call it liquid, but they're accessible. You can make a withdrawal in sort of 5 business days. You can get some or all of your money out if you need it. And yet they're incredibly diversified, so it mitigates that investment risk. So I've seen a lot of people who are investing in Sharesies, which is really great because that's been such a low entry point for people, so accessible, really like promoting investment. But if you're stock picking yourself, it's not very diversified. If I just have 10 companies that I've bought on Sharesies and I'm trying to keep track of what's happening with them and should I buy more or less or any of that, that's a lot of work for me. And even as a financial advisor, my expertise is not in creating a portfolio of funds. That's what literal fund managers do day in, day out. So that's why we would talk to people about being in a managed fund where someone else has created this portfolio. They're actively managing it a lot of the time. They're keeping across what's happening in the economy, what's happening with government rules, what's happening with politics, everything, and they're adjusting it for you. And then that manages your risk a lot more.
Nice. I'm just so captivated. And I kept thinking about my own Sharesies. And I treat Sharesies as my online impulsive purchases.
Yeah.
So when I have an urge to spend money, I go into Sharesies.
Instead of online shopping, you buy shares?
Yeah. So I've tried to retrain my brain. So instead of buying something on Facebook ad, because it pops up and it looks amazing. Like the other day, there was this lead that popped up and like you can use it to train your dog not to, pull. And I was like, oh, that's like a really cool purchase. How much is that? Oh, $200. All right, let's go to Sharesies. So I'll jump onto Sharesies and I'll spend that money buying whatever shares. I'll just press a button. Yeah. I don't care. I don't research. I don't do anything. I just go by gut instinct. I'm like one of those advisors, just goes by gut. This is why I'm not an investment advisor, just saying. I hate just sitting there and analyzing all those different trends of different shares and different equities and stuff like that. So for me, it was like, press a button, just go. And that's what Shares has enabled me to. But then I also have managed funds and I also have KiwiSaver and I also have properties. And so there is a whole lots of other things that I'm doing.
Yeah, and I think that's what we want our clients to be doing. Like Sharesies is great if that is your fun money, if that gives you a sense of kind of like dabbling in investment and getting comfortable with it. But then having money that you can, kind of rely on a bit more, obviously with caveats around anything could happen. But we know that over time, as long as you're investing for your time frame, then we know that we can make certain predictions and you can rely on that for your retirement savings, for example. And
the other thing I wanted to say is that often I compare Sharesies to lotto, to gambling.
Yeah.
So instead of buying a lotto ticket, and look, I used to own a lotto store, I could see how often people would not win. And we'll have the same regulars buying the tickets, week in, week out, hoping that they will win something. And they just don't. And they spend like $30 on a ticket, $50 on a ticket.
Every week.
Right? And I'm like, you might as well invest that money into Sharesies.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion for anyone who really gets that satisfaction out of buying lotto is you could put that into Sharesies and get the same or similar kind of sense of, well, this could lead to me being really rich in the future. You probably have better chances of getting some return rather than no return from buying lotto tickets.
Exactly. So now that's really cool because I think it's really, really important for people to understand at what point they should even be thinking about this and when should they be investing. And as we looked at the stats, by the time they retire, they're not going to have much money.
I think the earlier you start, the better. And I would say that when you notice that you've got any surplus in your household income is a great opportunity. And so if you can make a change when a change is already happening, is one of my best pieces of advice. So for example, when your kid turns 3 and they get the 23 hours of early childhood, so if you were paying for full-time childcare before and now you've got 20 hours free, how much are you saving? And if you don't need that to manage your day-to-day expenses, can that be the start of your investing for the future? Or when they go to school and again, you have that drop in childcare. I'm very much looking forward to my 4.5-year-old aging out of daycare next February. And we'll just have that little bit more surplus that we kind of know we don't need because we're managing now. Could very easily spend that on just going out more or anything. But if we just channel that into, that's a great time to start investing. And it often does line up with milestones like, okay, your kids just started school. Do you want to start a fund for them so that when they get to uni age, if they want to do something, you can help them with that so they have a smaller student loan or anything that kind of makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Or you get a pay rise at work and instead of just taking the pay rise, you just channel that extra into an investment. So anytime a change is already happening outside of your control, use that to link to a change within your control to invest that money.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example because that's what we say in home loans as well. Like when the rates go down, you know,
the same.
Keep the same repayments or repurpose that money for something else like investments. Yeah. Because otherwise they're just going to go and spend that money.
Yeah, because it's so easy. It's in your account. Why wouldn't you? That's the easy option. So we want to just seize the moment.
Absolutely. Awesome, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for coming along. And guys, remember, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We are here for you, for your education. And we're about to celebrate, I think, our milestone of 2,500 downloads.
Congratulations.
So, we've been going a year. Oh my God, I think it's been going a year. So I need to double check. But yes, thank you so much and loved having you here today.
Thank you.
Here's to more.
Bye.
Bye. And that's a wrap on that Home Loan Hub. Don't forget to hit subscribe and join me next time for more property tips and tricks. Your next smart move starts here.